Greetings, everybody, in 93. This is Qesheth again with the next in a series of talks I've been doing on the Major Arcana and the Paths of Return. It's been a while since I put one out. I've been really busy, like as most of us have. Tonight I'm using this poster I've had actually hanging in my dining room for years. And I looked at it the other day and I was like, why haven't I been using that? It's a great poster. It was issued by, let me see, Blue Horizon Oasis in California. An oasis of the Ordo Templi Orientis, an order that I used to be affiliated with. I'm no longer affiliated with them at this time, but I got this poster years ago. It's got the paths and the tarot cards attributed to the paths. It's pretty neat because it's also got the zodiacal paths, the letters, the meaning of the letters, the numerical value of the letters. So it's a very handy chart. So anyway, I thought I'd use that tonight. Tonight we're actually going to be talking about the Hermit card. One of my favorite cards, not one of my favorites, but the art of the card I remember from being a teenager in my early teenage years when Led Zeppelin came out with their album and they featured the Waits version of the Hermit card on the album jacket. Now, for young people, you didn't have vinyls, but back in the old days, vinyl had some pretty cool art on the album covers, and you could actually frame them. And yeah, I mean, it was great. So anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about the Hermit card. It's the path that connects Tipperith. We talked about that, HGA consciousness, the Kether center of your being, with Hesed, the will to form. Okay, so, and Hesed is the first of the Sephiroth that comes out of the supernal triad. So it is the will to form. It takes the ideas, the archetypes, the images stored in Binah and begins to give them structure and form. It's the organizing force of the universe and ruled by, it's actually the planet Jupiter. Okay? But tonight we'll be talking about this path here, path number 20, the Hermit card. Okay, and again, 93, welcome. The Sefer Yetzirah says this about this path. The 20th path is the intelligence of will, and is so called because it is the means of preparation, preparation of all and each created being. And by this intelligence, the existence of the primordial wisdom becomes known. By this intelligence of will. Think about this. Intelligence of will. Through intelligence of will, what? Primordial wisdom becomes known. So this is one of the last steps that the initiate would take in his journey as he enters into as he prepares himself to enter into the realm of the supernals, into the realm of pure ideas, into through the veil of the abyss. There are actually a few paths across the abyss, and there are secret paths that were revealed to Crowley in Liber Legis, the Book of the Law, and I do recommend the study of that book. Been a lot said about Crowley throughout the years, but I always just challenge people: read his works. Don't judge. Basically, don't judge the messenger, judge the work. Does it work? Crowley actually called this card the Virgin Man, the secret seed of all, or the secret gate of initiation. And we talked about the Atu number is 9. It's path number 20. It connects again Tipperith and Hesed, true will and will to form. Think about this. Personal will and will to form. Think about that. And this path, okay? It's a great meditation. Okay, so we talked about it. It's number 9, Atu 9. 9 is a number of completion, okay? The letter for this card, the Hebrew letter for this card is Yod, which is 10, which points to the actual being of completion and return. 9 is a number that is self-perpetuating, showing self-fertilization, self-perpetuation. The Hermit is self-fertilized. And we'll go on to some of the meaning of what I'm saying tonight here in just a moment. We talked about the letter for this card is Yod, the Hebrew letter Yod, meaning hand. And think about it. It is the human hand with the opposable thumb that has given us great power to build and create things. Art, some great works of art, things like that. So it's the hand as a tool of will. It is the motivating force of Chokmah. Okay? Remind that. Yod is the motivating force of Chokmah. Yod is also the basis for the entire Hebrew alphabet, which is known as the fire alphabet. The letter value for Yod is 10, and we talked about that. That is a number of completion. 10 would also be Malkuth and return. Okay, so the cycle has finished. So this card signifies an end of a cycle. Okay? The Jungian archetype is the wise old man and the virgin, showing also the end and beginning of a new cycle. Okay? The runic letter, for those who enjoy the runes, would be Hera. Hera means harvest. Okay, so the title of this card is the Prophet of the Eternal, the Magus of the Voice of Power. The voice is attributed to Chokmah. So we have the voice, the silence, and the voice, the vibratory energy that creates the universe. Okay, so we have the Magus of the Voice of Power. We talked about invocation in my earlier talks, and the power of vibration upon the material world, because all the material world is made up of different levels of vibration. So as we talk about, ascending the tree of life, for instance, we're not actually talking about going up into heaven like Christians point up into heaven. We're talking about various levels of consciousness. As we do the great work, right, we raise our energetic level to different levels and are able to perceive and exist in different realities. And we'll go into that again here in a few minutes. I'm trying something new. I've got my notes on a computer and I'm looking at them. Usually I have them on paper. So this is kind of new for me. The path name is the intelligence of will. We talked about that, meaning knowledge of one's purpose, fate, or orlog, which is the Norse term for fate. Okay, so one's purpose, fate, or orlog. Think about this. The intelligence of will. I talked about will being Chokmah, so the intelligence of will, the intelligence of the universe. Okay, so kind of meditate on that. Spelled in full, Yod equals 20. Okay. Interesting enough, 20 is the number of Jupiter, and Jupiter is also the ruler of the wheel of fortune, as I did in another talk. Okay. The Yod force, the hand, is actually the motivating force of the wheel. Okay, so the center of the wheel of the fortune card is the Yod force. The astrological sign for this card is Virgo. Mutable earth sign, the last sign of summer. Okay, so Virgo is the last sign of summer. So it's the time of the entering into fall, the dark half of the year. Think about this. The Hermit is now entering the dark half of the year. That card represents gestation, going within the Hermit. Okay? Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and therein is Mercury exalted. Mercury is both a messenger and a trickster. Anybody who studies mythology will understand what I'm talking about here. Here is his function as the psychopomp, okay, guiding the soul to the lower regions as shown on Crowley's card here. And I think you can see that okay. I think I've got my camera set up okay. I actually bought a new camera stand for my phone, so I'm learning to use that too. Mercury is also a god of commerce, showing Virgo's earthy nature. Mercury's exaltation in this sign shows its highest expression as alchemical Mercury, showing the innate ability of Virgos to redirect the mercurial trickster force into its highest expression as fixed Mercury, represented here on this path by the Magician card. Okay? So the ability to create. So fixed, what does that mean? So what happens? What do you do when you fix your attention on something? So when we talk about fixed elements, we're talking about fixing them. We're talking to put it in simple terms, to fix them according to will. Okay? So that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying fixing this fixing these elements, the four fixed signs of the zodiac, okay? In its natural state, Virgo is the lowest, most receptive of the signs, representing the climax of the descent into matter and the reintegration into spirit. I'm going to repeat that. In its natural state, Virgo in its lowest form is one of the most receptive signs, representing the climax of the descent of matter, okay? The climax of the descent into matter. Okay, so they can be very earthy people and very vain sometimes, but it can also represent the reintegration into spirit. Okay, the climax into the descent of matter and the reintegration into spirit. Virgo is the virgin. This figure is virgin in the sense that he has given all to the great work, right? Singular devotion. Okay, so virgin here doesn't mean, it's not the same thing. The sex that he's having is with himself, right? Because he's redirected the Kunda energy, the serpent energy, to the great work. Okay, he's fixed it to in a different direction, where most of the world just blows it off and games and playing and sex and playing with themselves all the time. The great work's not for everybody. Uh, the term virgin can also point to the fact that the HGA, okay, we talked about that, the secret self, and in the Vedic it's called the Atman, is itself unstained, unaffected by the events of incarnation. This is the Yekata part of your soul, your energy body that resides in Kether. So think about that. Your HGA is your Yekata. It resides in Kether, the highest, the I guess the pure initial thought of your being, your initial will. Okay, so it's unstained through incarnation. It is the silent observer that goes through lifetime with you. It's God experiencing itself. Adeptus Levi has a great image of that. Uh, all things are projection in order for this divine creation to experience itself through you. Okay? So, because we are multidimensional beings, we are existing in all 10 of these realities, all levels of these realities at every moment of every day. Believe it or not. But you're only aware of one dimension, this dimension that you're living in each day. Okay? but I see us made up, when I see us through spiritual eyes, I see us more like layers of an onion. Like at our center is Kether, at our atomic core, right? And so what is an atom? It's a proton, a neutron, and electrons. And so at this very atomic level, this is Kether. It's what do we call the proton? No, I'm not a scientist. So, and then you have that neutron. So you have the neutron and the electrons. all this kind of spiraling around it. And this is kind of the way we're made up. And so, but you're just aware of one level. So you're not reaching to heaven. We're not going to some heavenly place looking there. It's here. Heaven, even Jesus said in the Gnostic text that the kingdom of heaven is within. I say, okay. Okay, and history is filled with stories of ordinary men retreating for a period of time and coming back supermen. Something changed them, but what happened? Buddha under the Bodhi tree, Jesus in the desert for 40 days, Muhammad in the cave. So think about that. I'm just using these images, Muhammad in the cave talking to Gabriel. I'm just using these because these are common images that the Westerner remembers and can relate to, okay? But something happened to these beings. But we also have to remember, too, that we judge these very harshly. We judge these prophets very harshly because really in truth, what they saw and what they were given was not what was relayed to the public in the religions that came after them. As it says in Liber 10, many adepts throughout the ages have sought to do this. Sought to do this, to bring us into truth and light and bliss. But their words have been perverted by their successors, and again the veil has fallen upon the Holy of Holies. Okay? So, many of these adepts have sought to bring people to truth, light, and bliss, but their words have been perverted by their successors. You got to remember, most of these people, like even Muhammad, their teachings were not written down to at least 30 years after their death. So these were not the original teachings of these prophets. These were the teachings of their successors. Okay, so then you got religion. I mean, you can imagine Buddha today looking and seeing a temple. He'd be pissed. These guys would be like, you could use that money better to serve the poor, do something for your community. We talk about the homeless shelters, but we got churches that are empty 6 days a week. You know what I mean? So it's kind of funny. Through his work, the work of this hermit guy, through his work, he is now free from the will of samsara, rebirth. Okay? So this is the path that leads to Hesed, the initiation of the exemptus adeptus. And I've lost my pointer. Am I moving around here? So anyway, this is the initiation of the exemptus adeptus here in Hesed, where the adept will make the final decision either to keep the power for himself and join the lodge of the Black Brothers, or to give all in the cup of Binah, where the blood of the saints is mingled here. Okay, so thus becoming a master of the temple, because that is the initiation of Binah, tending his garden of initiates that are following up behind him in his journey. He bears the light to guide their way, as seen in Waite's and Crowley's card. They both bear a lantern. And in Waite's card, you can see he holds it, like he's holding it above for those who's following behind him to shine the light. Okay? So this is kind of the responsibility of the adept. Once you reach a certain, it's not your responsibility in the lower initiations and the initiations of the personality to try to help others, unless you're a member of an order that would require you to do so, because at that point you haven't even fixed yourself. How can you help another person if you're too cloudy? There's so many people that want to be teachers immediately in this path, and I can promise you, it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of ego in its earlier paths, especially, decide you want to be a teacher of the way. Honestly, learn, study, do the work. And then once you've attained certain degrees of initiation and knowledge, then it is your responsibility to hold the light for others to follow. And I mean, it is your responsibility to do so. You do not do this just for yourself. You affect the matrix. When you change yourself, you change the whole matrix. Okay? In Crowley's card, you see the Hermit piercing through the veil of matter, represented by the grain of Virgo. And all around him is this grain. And he's kind of pushed it back like a curtain. And again, Virgo, being the last of the signs of summer, is a sign of harvest. And grain is one of the symbols of it, okay? The grain is ready for harvest. And think about it. The Hermit is ready for harvest, okay? And we'll go into that in a minute. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I got my notes here. I'm trying to follow them. This figure is now ready to be harvested by the scythe, or sickle of Bina, which is one of the symbols of Bina, which is a sickle. So now he's going to be harvested. That which he has sown is now to be reaped, okay? The hound, Cerberus, the three-headed guardian of the lower worlds in Greek mythology, who follows on his heels, has no effect on him. He's back here just barking away, but the light, he's kind of shunned by the light, but the will of this hermit, this individual, is so fixed that it no longer bothers him. Okay? For he has conquered and subdued the unconscious forces within himself, and they now serve his will. Masons will understand this symbol as the three slayers of the Grand Master. This individual's attention is fixed on the Orphic egg, for Virgo is a sign of analysis. The egg and the serpent also represent love under will. Think about it. Love under will. He has peeled back the veil of Mara and now beholds directly the inner workings of the universe. His single-pointed devotion and isolation, represented by the spermatozoon rising up here, okay? Which symbolizes will and the logos, the word, the creator of the worlds. It has fertilized the egg, and a new creation is about to be born from the womb of Binah. The spermatozoon represents the yod force, the force of will used to accomplish this goal. It is impregnating the cosmic egg. Okay, he's self-fertilizing. 9, self-perpetuating. His robe is the color of Bina, here in the princess scale, showing that the work is done in Malkuth, in the material plane, okay? Also showing this card as meaning gestation, also represented by the egg and the serpent, here, okay? In silence, this embryo grows to fruition. His will, represented by the serpent, incubates the egg. We'll take a quick look at Waite's card. Okay, this is the card that I always think of when I was, throughout my years, even as a teenager, when I thought about the Hermit card. You know, back when in my days there weren't 10,000 tarot cards out there. The Rider-Waite and the Crowley were what I was introduced to and continue to work with throughout my life. It's a classic card. And again, I remember it from the Led Zeppelin album. It was on the album jacket. And it was really cool. Anyway, he stands alone on a desolate peak, showing the isolation needed to accomplish the great work. It is a lonely path. His robe is the black of Binah in the queen scale. He holds a lamp, illuminating the path for those who follow. So his card is fairly simple, but it's right straight to the point. He has a staff. The staff always represents will. You know, the wand. So in the same sense, he still has the symbol of will. Okay? And you also notice in Crowley's card, something I didn't point out, the figure itself is in the yod position. Okay? Representing, again, the yod force used to direct this work. Cerberus, you know, they say he looks into the past, the present, and the future, the three heads. There's different interpretations of Cerberus, but he is the hound of the underworld, kind of like Garm, who in the Norse mythologies, who guards the gates of the underworld. And in our philosophies, of course, the underworld is not the hell and punishment. It's the unconscious realms. It's the realms below our realms, okay, or are hidden from our realms, not below. That's a bad term. And kind of the lesson of this card is this: the great work is accomplished in silence. The need for occasional isolation is a must for this to gestate. I mean, if you want to be out partying all the time and surrounded by your friends, well, that's fine. Do your will, but it's not the path. It's not going to make. Yeah, as I've been on this path for over 30 years, I can tell you I've lost a lot of friends. I've lost interest in a lot of stuff I used to love, and it kind of obsessed me and took over my life. And so that's what my life is now: spiritual knowledge and spiritual seeking. Uh, Remember the four powers of the Sphinx: to know, to dare, and to keep silent. Wait a minute, I just lost it. Just give me a minute here. For some reason, I clicked on something on my computer and I kind of lost my class. And so, anyway, you know, meditation and silent meditation. Think about, like when I was younger, I spent a lot of time, for instance, in the desert, or in different places. I think about Crowley going through China, doing the Enochian work, and also when he was in Mexico. And if you ever see photos of Crowley in Mexico and how rough he looked, he was doing a lot of work out there. He was scrying the Enochian aethers, and so it's pretty cool. Just give me a minute here. We'd already talked about, again, the powers of the personality, but now we're entering the spiritual realms where the cards will become much more complex. I'm going to do a class. I am going to do a class on spiritual attainment. I've discussed the various practices as I went through this, but I want to sum it all up for people. That way they understand a little bit better. Okay, I've got this up again. Just want to make sure I've got all my notes because I know how I am. I get way sidetracked. And that's why I make notes in order to keep myself on the I talked about remember the four powers of the Sphinx: to know, to dare, to will, to be silent. The world is full of distractions and noise that keeps us from reaching our inner truth. And this is done purposely. The same reason they made LSD illegal, psilocybin illegal, because these things, if a person awakens, they're hard to rule. It's hard to keep a sheep in the pen if it's an awakened sheep. I always say, one of my things as also a Teutonic person is be a wolf among the sheep. They don't know, I'm a wolf in sheep's clothing. So, uh, so again, it's done purposely by the powers that be, because the powers that be have studied mass manipulation, and they know how to do it through fear, through continuous distraction, and stimulating the lower regions of a person. Okay, because by stimulating the lower instincts of a human being, they can keep them enslaved, because they become addicted to their senses to such a point that they can't put down their phones anymore. They can't keep their TVs off. They can't even stand silence. I'm telling you now, you have to find some time to be silent. I used to spend a lot of time in the desert by myself and various vision quests by myself. And again, this whole thing about going in stores being bombarded and the senses being bombarded on a continuous basis is done purposely, okay, by the Black Lodge that seek power and control, enslaving humanity to their lower natures through the continuous bombardment of the senses. The path we are on is called the left-hand path. It's the esoteric versus the exoteric, the inner work, okay? Like religions themselves are for the masses. They're just to keep the masses in line and then keep the society, But the path that we're is the esoteric, the inner work. And okay, so it's very hard to rule over enlightened individuals. And so They would prefer to continue to bombard you with your phone, with your TV, with commercials, when you go into stores, with the music, this continuous stimulation of the senses, and keep your monkey mind occupied and satisfied, and keep you fat on their junk food and make you weak. So one of the things I always teach people too is the diet. You know, we talk about Virgo. Virgo has to do with the digestion somewhat too. And so, anyway, if you are on the path of the great work, your diet is a major part of it. I call this the slave diet, where they feed you food that makes you sick, so the doctors get rich, the hospitals get rich. It's a continuous loop of people getting wealthy off your bad habits. You must become your own God. We're going to look at some of the attributions right now. The holy book is Libra Yod. If you're a Thelemite, I'm a Thelemite. I'm a Teutonic Thelemite, which means I love the mysteries of the North, and I have adopted Crowley's law. The king's scale for this path is green or yellowish. The stone is peridot. Plants are the snowdrop, the lily, or the narcissus. Animals are the virgin, the anchorite. Solitary people are solitary animals. The magic power is invisibility. And that's a pretty cool power too, because you can actually learn to be invisible. Put a cloak of invisibility on you wherever you dwell. The hermit, he's invisible. You don't really know who he is, right? Your average spiritual person is not going through society like with long flowing robes all the time. The perfume is Narcissus. The magical weapon is the lamp, the wand, and the bread. Again, attributed to Virgo. And the body is the back, and I also say some of the intestinal organs. Again, this is the Hermit. It goes from the HGA consciousness to the will to form. And again, that's what he's doing. He's willing to form himself into a new creation. His next leap would be to the abyss. And we'll talk about the abyss and to this other level of consciousness, God consciousness, becoming God. Because that is our responsibility as humans. We can be either human animals or human gods. It's up to us on how we utilize the Yod force in our lives. And our society will definitely have you seeking to be the human animal. The human animal is easy to control. Look at all our farm animals. Look at all our domesticated animals. Look how we control them. Are you a domesticated animal? Are you a free thinker, a person seeking his own will? And this is the way of this path. Anyway, I don't know that I have much more to say about this path. Like I said, I'm touching very lightly on these paths, and there's so much more to talk about. But I try to keep it within about 30 minutes, and try to keep it as simple as I can, because you also always look at when you're rising on the tree of life, like an initiatic process that would follow the Sephiroth. The initiate would be balancing every path as he rose in consciousness or energetic level, ascending the tree of life. Okay, so for now, I'm going to close with a reading from Crowley. Wander alone, bearing the light and thy staff, and be the light so bright that no man seeth thee. Be not moved by aught without or within. Keep silence in thy ways. And with that, I will close this discussion. Hope it helped you. If there's anything else you would like me to discuss, please leave in the comment section. I've got a lot of people watching and not commenting. And that'll help me to what I need to do after I finish this series of talks, okay? Again, I appreciate it. 93.